Sperau of Stuart live bait. I'm Capt Derrick Herborn with Snook Nook Charters. We've got a little bit of a night for you guys. We're going to go into a couple of things here, a little bit about what Snook Nook Charters has to offer, a little touching on snook fishing, as well as a couple of combos we're using as well as catching fish today. Getting straight into it. We're fishing the Parker Big Bay 2002. Just updated with the Herborn 250 Pro XS. We already put about 200 hours on the thing, so we've been running quite a few trips. 10-inch draft on it, 8'6" beam, so plenty of room for a lot of anglers. And that's a big position for us fishing. Get a lot of people out. Probably one of the busiest charter boats with four customers, four guests on board, and we're mostly fishing along live baits. So trying to stay clear of lines and clear of each other's tackle is a big deal. So having that big beam and that large frame of the boat is extremely versatile for those anglers. We also got Minn Kota Tarova with the iPilot on it, 36 volt, 101 pound thrust. Definitely what you need to get in the zone to start targeting some of those fish. Got the Humminbird Helix 10 with the side scan on it, definitely helpful tool. Definitely a good attribute to help you guys side scan, get some of those fish, and actually see those fish, put your bait to them, put it in front of them, and have them eat it. Definitely going to find that a little bit easier for you using them. We got a 10-foot blade power pole on it, and it's just an extremely versatile boat. It's a great boat for the bay, great boat for the area. You can fish the flats with it and also be fishing the ocean. We do a lot with it offshore as well as inshore. Getting into some of the tackle that we're using, we use a lot of the Crowder E-Series rods. Go from the 6 to 12 pound class all the way up to the 15 to 30 in the E-Series. Great rod for live baiting. Those are going to be paired with spin fishers and slammers. The slammers are going to be on, obviously, the bigger rods, 15 to 30s, so on and so forth. So like I said, we're also using those spin fisher 2500s to 5500s as well, paired with those Crowders. Getting into a couple of things we've been catching lately out on the boat. We've had a few great trips recently this week. A bunch of keeper snook, probably about 7 or 8 keeper snook in the last 4 trips. So that's, 2 2-man limits and 1 3-man limit on the last 3 trips. We bunked out on this afternoon's trip. They bailed on us, so we weren't able to get out there. That being said, we're looking forward to getting out tomorrow morning and getting on them. Yeah, so like I said, been hitting a lot with shrimp on a jig, doing a lot of live baiting, croaker fishing, threadfin, pinfish, pilchards, stuff like that. Hitting a lot of docks and seawalls. It's been a pretty busy week for us. And the Snook Nook boat has all the tools you need to be as efficient as possible when using it. So getting into a little bit more of the snook fishing and the tackle I use for snook fishing. You got a lot of ways we can target these fish. Excuse me there. First setup I'm going to jump into here is E-Series. It's going to be a 8 to 15 pound, 7-foot Crowder in the E-Series. I got it paired with 10 pound Power Pro grade, also 20 pound Andy fluorocarbon. That's going to be big when you're fishing artificial baits. I like to use fluorocarbon when I'm fishing artificial baits. It's a little less buoyant than the monofilament, and it just seems to be a little less visible in the water. I'm kind of a firm believer in that. Got it tied with a uni to uni and going to a loop knot down here at the end. A great bait to use and utilize on the flats. You're going to have an 1/8 ounce DOA jig head with a DOA Cal Arkansas glow. Very versatile bait. Bait you can pretty much throw anywhere, whether you're skipping docks, hitting the flats, mangrove edges, mangrove lines, any seagrass flats, humps, anything, shallow water. This is basically what you're after with this lure. Going to find a lot of different species of fish, but I'd like to catch a lot of snook with it. Always got to have a good soft plastic on board, locked and loaded. That's one I like to use. Moving up a little bit, got the 12 to 20 pound crowder, again in the E series. That's going to be with 15-pound braid. Good. That's going to be with 15-pound braid, and it's going to be with 40-pound fluorocarbon, and we got the Yozuri Hydro Pencil, which is a topwater bait. I always like to have a topwater bait on board. You know, you look and you see a lot out there, whether it's going to be jack crevalles busting on the surface or, you know, snook. It could be anything. You just want to have a bait ready to go, ready to pitch. It's all about being efficient. Being the most efficient as possible is going to get you that strike, and getting there first. You know, you want to get that bait in the water first. So this is a good bait, good presentation, and a good setup. Again, it's going to be paired with a 4500 spin fisher, enough torque to pull on a bigger fish. With that 15 to 20 pound crowder, it's definitely going to be a good setup for you. That's a Yozuri Hydro Pencil. Sorry about that, guys. Carrying on, getting more into some of my live bait setups here. Something I utilize every day. We do a lot of live bait fishing on the Snook Nook boat. In fact, it's pretty much the only thing I do. Those two artificial presentations there are probably the only two artificial presentations I'll ever have on that boat. And that's mainly because all we're doing is throwing live baits, whether it's pilchards, mullet, threadfin, croaker. That's what we're using. So getting into this setup here, it's going to be a 15 to 25 pound crowder rod, E series again, 7 foot, and it's going to be paired with 20 pound braid and 50 pound Andy Fluoro, or Andy Mono rather. I'm a big fan of the Andy Mono. It's a little bit less expensive. You get a bigger spool of it. It's going to last a lot longer. And I really don't think there's much of a difference between the fluoro and the mono when you're using live bait. I don't. I think it stretches a little bit better, and it's just something I've utilized, personal preference. I'm sure there's a lot of other ways to do it, 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? So that's just the way we do it here on the Snook Nook boat. Again, uni to uni, down here to a loop knot. It's going to be to a 6.0 Mustad Demon circle hook. And again, I'm matching that hook to the size of my baits, right? So I'm not going to use a 7.0 or 8.0 hook for a small size pilchard. It's just gonna weigh it down, have it swim to the bottom, swim in circles, lethargic, tired. It's going to die quicker. So you're going to want to match that hook to the size of your bait. Bigger mullet, you're going to want to use a bigger hook. You know, put that 7.0, 8.0 on there. Here. Appreciate it. Alright, busting out the big guns. Heavier tackle situations. Using this at more of our bridges, more of our concrete docks, older docks where you get a lot of barnacle growth. You're going to need a little bit of a heavier gun to rip that fish out of there. This is going to do it. This is a 15 to 30 Crowder E series again. It's going to be with 40 pound Power Pro braid with 100 pound Anti-Mono. Yesterday we had a pretty good example of this being out. Alex is going to love me for this. We were bridge fishing up at the Stuart Causeway, dropped down a croaker. I said, man, we should really up our tackle a bit. We should go from 50 pound, at least put on 80 or 100 pound. Ended up hooking on a fish on that 50 pound. We opted against going up. Might have got the strike because of being on the lighter tackle, but we definitely needed that heavier leader. These bigger fish aren't as line shy as you may think. You put a big enough or nice enough bait in front of them, they're going to eat it. They're lethargic fish. You got to really put it in front of them. Bellies are always going to be at the bottom. Noses are always going to be in the current, and they're just lazy. So you got to put it right in front of them. But once the big one eats it, you're going to wish you had a little bit more backbone to pull on that fish, a little bit more leader. You know, you want a little bit more. I would say 80 to 100 pound when you're fishing those bigger bridges with bigger baits, because you know you might even end up into a Goliath, and the last thing you want to do is have to retie a leader. You'd rather be on point, rip that fish out of there, keep going. Now, in some cases, you're not gonna be able to get that fish out of there. That fish is gonna run up under there, get into that cage of structure. It's just gonna break you off, and break off happens. The point is, you can't get frustrated. You got to keep going. Keep persevering, keep trying to be as efficient as possible. Tie your lines in the wind, tie them at home, you know, inside, just keep tying lines, keep getting faster at it, keep getting baits in the water. That's how you're going to catch up with these fish. Another thing I see a lot of people doing, fishing spots or when I'm fishing with friends, is they're quick to leave a spot. You got to show up to a spot, and the way I like to fish it is fish into it. I'll start from way outside where I think these fish will be, and I'll pitch a bait. That bait might be 20 feet, 30 feet off of a seawall or a dock, but that fish still might be patrolling that area. So I give it time, you know. I'll fish into that spot, cruise down with my trolling motor, make my way up as slow as possible and as cautious and quiet as possible, and just keep pitching baits and feeding them into those strike zones where you think those areas are. Where you think those areas look fishy and you're like, oh, I might not be able to cast there, I might not be able to get it in there. That's where that fish is. That fish is hanging out in those low, dark areas that, you know, just gonna eat it and take off into some structure, and that's, you're gonna need some backbone again, which is why the bigger rod, I call it combat fishing. You're gonna need a bigger rod, you're gonna need to bend that rod and lock down that drag and get them out of that structure. So again, fishing into your spot is extremely important. Give it time. And then, you know, once you get into your spot, you can get right up to that dock. I mean, I've had fish from me to Mike away, literally, maybe me to the sign away, 10 feet, you can see him right in front of you, and you can just feed that fish. It's just a matter of that fish being comfortable. If you've been there a while, 15, 20 minutes maybe, he's going to start getting back comfortable again. Give yourself some time, put a bait in front of him and see if he chows. Otherwise, pick up and move. I'm usually fishing some spots between 20 and 30 minutes. I don't like to waste too much time. I'm not spending an hour at a dock. If it's not happening, it's not happening. A lot of people get stuck on one particular spot, and that can seem to be, you know, the death for him. I mean, you just think, oh, I caught a huge snook here before, he's going to be back here. Now that fish is moving up and down that east wall of Sewell's Point. He's coming into the Indian River. They're moving all the time. And sure, there are those resident fish. You know, if you guys know where some of these guys keep some baits around here, you can come, you know, hit a dock where they're always going to be there. But yeah, that's for another story. I'll leave that to Mike to tell you that's that. Getting off topic there. Going into some artificial presentations, I kind of skipped over that. Grab the rod because it kind of helps me when I'm talking. You get into a point where you are ready to artificial fish, and maybe you don't have live baits, or maybe you ran out of live bait, or don't feel like breaking out the cast net. You're going to want to position yourself down current and casting up current, correct? So you want that fish to be up current of you, face down on the water, nose into the current. You want to cast up current so you're retrieving almost into that fish's mouth, right? So if I'm here, this is the dock in front of me, I'm going to want to skip right underneath this dock and retrieve that bait back to me as if the current's, you know, outgoing towards me. That'll give you the best and most effective approach to skipping docks and fishing an artificial bait, because it's not going to, the fish isn't going to respond to an unnatural movement, right? If that current is moving outgoing and you're trying to pitch it outgoing and retrieve it back on that outgoing tide, chance of that bait getting low enough in that water column is impossible. You know, maybe you have a heavy enough jig head and yeah, you might get a strike, but it just doesn't look natural enough. So you want to be up current or casting up current of that fish always, just to present that bait in the proper way. Another way you could do it is side to, you know, side to current. If you got an outgoing current, say it's coming towards me, you can cast a sweeping method, cast up, and it'll retrieve back to you kind of gradually rolling down the side of a seawall or something like that. great ways to approach artificial fishing. You're going to find that it's going to be the best way to utilize these techniques. You're going to be catching more fish doing it that way. It's just a little bit more proper. Let's see here. Again, like I said, fishing heavy structure too. It's okay to beef up your tackle. You want to be able to be in the position to even if it's a smaller fish, at least you catch it. So say you're into a pot of some bigger fish, or a school of some bigger fish rather, and you break off one, all right, and the next one you get after you scale up your tackle is a smaller fish. Well, that's okay. Those fish are still chewing. So drop another bait down there with that heavier tackle and pull them out. And like I said, don't be afraid to scale up on that leader. These fish aren't as line shy as people think. Maybe in the flats, again, when you're pitching artificials, stuff like that, you want to change to that fluorocarbon, lighten up that leader. But for the most part, these fish with a live bait, if you get it in front of their face, they will absolutely inhale. They're extremely aggressive fish, and they're always hungry. What do you say?
So that's about right.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Derrick,
Yes.
you mentioned about having to pull them out of the structure of the bridges.
Sure.
Well, under these bridges is this big square piece of concrete.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You want to stay away from those fenders. I mean,
No, but the main supports of the bridge.
Oh yeah, sure. So if you have the opportunity, I appreciate that, Keith. You can get onto these concrete pads. You can stand up on there and you can fish for them off of those pads if you want. Drag that fish back to the boat, get them in the net, get yourself a better position on that concrete pad if you have to.
But that pad doesn't go to the bottom.
No.
That's the point I was trying to bring up.
I see.
So you said about the fish running into the structure.
Okay, so those pads that we're talking about, take the Stuart Causeway or the 10-cent bridge, for example. Those pads that I'm talking about, and by pads I mean those concrete blocks that you're staring at when you're looking at them, they're all hollow. You got it's a cage under there. You got 4 pilings on each side, straight down all the way down. It's a big cage under there. So it's plenty of structure for these guys to hide in. It's basically a big fish haven under there. You know, all kinds of species of fish in there. So yeah, like I said, 4 pilings on each side of the pad, so 16 total going down. So relentless structure. It's tough to get these fish out of there. Like I said, breaking off is it's going to happen. You can't get frustrated. That's the name of the game when it comes to snook fishing. You know, you're going to break 1 or 2 off. The point is just get back in there, stay tenacious, and keep fishing. Any questions, guys? I'll feel free to open it up on some snook fishing questions.
What about leader length?
Leader length. I'm operating, 16, 24 inches. I tend not to go not much more than that. It gets chafed up pretty quick. I just change it out. I'm not going to worry too much about it. 16 to 24 inches seems to be that sweet spot. And then again, you're not going to be kinking up your leader line and your guides when you got your hook down on your hook guide, stuff like that. So 16 to 24 inches. I'm using circle hooks, Demon circle hooks, mustads. Anywhere between 4 and 7/0, depending on the size of the bait. Like I said, bigger baits, bigger hooks, obviously, and that's how we're matching it up. The baits we're using, Mike's going to go over a little about, but we're throwing the net for mullet, pilchards. We got guys bringing down croakers, thread fins they're picking up, but I'll let Mike dive into a little bit more of that. Yeah, feel free, guys. Open up to any questions you may have. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Mike here. And yes, sir.
You ever fish any freshwater lakes for snook?
Yeah. So freshwater lakes for snook. I used to do it a lot down in Miami off of some golf courses. I imagine it could be similar here. Artificial, you're never going to go wrong with artificial baits. Split tail shads, DOA makes good ones. Arkansas glow's always been a favorite color. Shrimp on a popping cork. They may not last long in that fresh water, but it'll still get the job done on a popping cork. I used to do that all the time at the golf course on a popping cork. Even a DOA shrimp, just the regular 3-inch DOA shrimp, it'll work perfect out there. Anybody else? Henry, got anything? What's up, brother? All right, cool. I'm gonna turn it over to Mike here from Stuart Live Bait. He's got a lot to talk to you guys about. I'm gonna leave it to him. Thanks, Mike.
How's everybody doing today? Alright, so I'm going to go over 3 things today. The whole bait topic, catching bait. We got wintertime versus summertime patterns. We have tackle, dehooking, sabiki size, color, answering all that. And then fish finders. Fish finders, fish finders, fish finders. So we'll start off with the tackle. Pretty much anything. Now, anybody who was here that was at the Stuart Rod and Reel Club, that was actually my first seminar I did, Keith. Yeah, what's up, buddy? My views have actually changed. Just like anybody fishing, you learn stuff on the daily. So, me and Pops have learned heavier lead will always do the trick for you. We start with a nothing smaller than a 5 to a 6 ounce lead bank sinker. They have the clips on the bottom of the Hayabusas. This is a Hayabusa number 6. There's really no going the cheap route on sabikis. You're going to end up paying for it in the long run with hooks popping off. The barbs, sabiki may look fine, but the barb will get crushed down after the hooking the bait after so many times. And that'll end up making you pull a stringer up and they all go ding, 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 ding. Everything falling off there. Yeah. Pretty much, a lot of people like mono, personal preference. It's got more bend to it, so you might not plunk as many off. But I personally like using braid, anything from 30 to 40 pound. Something just a little bit heavier because sometimes we have to deal with the sharks, the bonitas, the kingfish, the goliaths, everything you can think of. Just the other day, we were fighting with little baby reef sharks at one end and white birds coming in from the top, like attacking the top of the sabiki. So there's nice to be able to get it out of the water real quick when you have to and put them in the well. Any kind of rod, really. I like to go like anything from a 15 to 30, just a little bit heavier or a little bit lighter. Something with a little bit of a bendy tip with a nice stiff back. We usually run double sabikis, so it's twice this length. It'll be 12 to 14 sabikis overall, depending on which brand you use. So that many little thread fins, you'd think of a little bait that hard when pull, but it feels like you just hook something good, you know?
You get a whole stringer full of them.
Oh yeah. Dehooking. Dehooker is like super, super, super important. That's the reason we're able to keep baits as well as we are when it comes to thread fins, because we don't cast net thread fins. Everything that we catch as far as thread fins are sabiki. So you're dehooking. So you got one on your top hook. And you got one down here on your bottom. You reel these guys up, you bring them up, grab your lead so that lead isn't swinging around, because that lead will get somebody. Those little sabiki hooks do not feel good in your arms. So pretty much, with one hand, you're going to have your lead and you in the bottom of your line, and you're going to have your dehooker in the other hand. I just personally like to keep my rod right here. That's what's comfortable. Some people like to keep it like between their legs and stuff. I can't do that. Start from the top. You can reach out and grab that, and if you pull the opposite way, bing, instant. You can come down, and it'll go just like that, right in your bait well. Take a little practice with getting your aim down, but super efficient, and that'll help you keep your baits alive. That helps the scales. You grab that bait, and if you pin that bait overnight, the next morning when you go to pick it up out of the water, you can see your fingerprints on that bait. You can actually look and see your perfect handprint on that bait, and it's pretty crazy, but it's real.
So extremely delicate.
Super delicate, super delicate. Now the Pilchards are not so as delicate. We can put the net on those. We still prefer to sabiki them if we can.
Right.
But
so you want to be as quick as possible on
always
the
as quick as possible. But just take your time with it, really. You know, it's all about taking your time. You don't have to rip the sabiki out of the water. Get a couple on there, let it eat for a second. That's usually when you're only pulling up 1 and 2 and there's like a 30-foot mark and 40 feet of water. You're only getting 1 or 2 baits. Just once you feel that 1 or 2 bite, just let them bite for a second. You'll feel them slowly throttle load up a little bit, and then that's when you can slowly start cranking it. Never really have to put too much pressure on them. Nice slow reel, unless you got predators, of course.
You recommend starting with the 6 chain or the 12?
Always the 6. Always that 12 on. Very seldom on like a recreational boat are you gonna have enough space to where it's comfortable to run a full 12, because it's just on the 24-foot skiff. I have no enclosure over top of me, and that thing seems to find a way around everything, around the nets, around my back, in my ears. Oh, just horrible. So
little hooks end up everywhere, man. Gotta be careful.
Worse than a big hook is.
And reel doesn't much matter.
The reel, no. As long as it's not too small.
Okay.
Anything from a 4,000 size up to a 6,000 size. What's up?
You ever used a speaking rod where goes down?
When I was younger, I did. Now, it's more of a pain than anything to have it reel up inside and something breaks inside of there or something. You know, it's usually I don't have a sabiki. Well, I don't have a sabiki tied straight onto my braid line with the swivel. I'll use a knot to tie it on. You can use your FG knot, whichever you like. That's so that I can reel it straight up into the eyes with no repercussion, no broken eyes, none of that. You know. The same when I'm connecting the two. I never leave a swivel in between the two. If you can tie a quick knot to connect those two together, it's always going to be better than leaving terminal tackle.
Less drag.
Just less drag, less little stuff for mackerel to pick at on your way up, little stuff shining.
Sure.
Just everything, you know. Anytime you can eliminate terminal tackle, you're stepping up the game. Wintertime versus summertime, everybody's always every other day people ask me during the wintertime, where did all the bait go? There was just bait out here for 6 months straight, and now there's nothing. I can't find nothing. I went 20 miles each way. Well, wintertime, the thread fins do not hold to structure. They won't hold in one place. They're following a temp and a color change, and they're always looking for krill and something to eat. They're not wanting to stay anywhere. When we have a cold front, they'll push north, and then as it gets warm, they'll start moving back a little further south, and we'll keep going back and forth with that motion until summertime comes and they get into their spring patterns. As far as spring patterns, Bull Shark, Sand Pile, Evans Prairie, all of those local spots you can go find bait at. Bull Shark being the most known. I mean, that's a circus out there on days, you know.
Sure. For those of you guys who don't know Bull Shark, you just go out the inlet and look southeast, and there'll be a floating city out there.
Look like a mini Miami.
Yeah.
So where's the best place to get bait?
Best place to get bait is probably the bait guys, right over there in Manatee Pocket.
You can go out for 2 hours and catch bait, or you can go buy it, save gas, save sabikis, save aggravation.
The cost of it ends up almost equal in the same. If you think, well, these sabikis here are $3.89. All right, so if I buy 10 of these sabikis, say the average recreational fisherman needs 50 to 60 baits to go fishing, and that's for a good day. There's a good chance out on Bull Shark, if one of our fellow guides are out there chumming up the bonitas and stuff like that, there's a good chance you're going to get bonitaed. So
You're
those
gonna
10
go
rigs,
through 4 of them,
those 10 rigs,
plus
if it's
weights.
you and 2 or 3 of your buddies, those are going to last about 10 minutes. You know, if it's a bad day.
And
So
by
there's that.
bonitaed, he means you're suddenly going to be catching bonitas on your sabiki rigs, tearing them up,
Yeah.
$4 a piece,
Well, plus the weight.
plus the weight, plus the
Yeah,
lead.
yeah,
There you
10 rigs at $4 a piece, $40. If we had pilchards, that's 2 dozen. 2 dozen, get you going. Buy 5 sabikis and go try to get you an extra 2 or 3 dozen before you head out onto your spot. That'll get you going pretty quickly. Yeah, that's usually what most of my charter guys, offshore charter guys do. They'll grab a couple dozen for insurance, and then go head out and try to find a couple to fish with.
Not to mention it beats being the first one to your spot. I'll be the first to say that. This is an extremely pressured area. A lot of people are fishing south here in Stuart. Not many people pushing as far north. It's just a closer ride. You can catch snook right in your backyard.
Yep.
So it's pressured. It works best to be the first one out there, get with these guys, get a few dozen, and get rolling.
All too many days it's been the little girl and her dad that are there 5:45, get a dozen pilchards and they're back within an hour. Oh, look at these pictures, overslots, this and that. You know, it's all about saving time and getting on the bite and being there when that bite window is happening. You know, it's because it's not always happening. And once that inlet fills up, as far as snook fishing, it's hard to find a spot. So,
Got to be efficient.
How early do you start? How early do you start selling?
I'm up by 3:30 a.m. every morning, and I'm usually on the water between 5:30 and 6. We get earlier as the sun comes up. We usually try to be there within 30 minutes before the sun comes up. During the summertime, if you guys have Bahamas trips or you guys are crossing over or doing something where you're wanting to get out a little bit earlier, you can just give us a call the night before and check it out and see if it's possible. Yeah.
Put it in perspective, I do 6 a.m. trips, and I've only ever beat them to Manatee Pocket one time. So they're up early.
That's you?
This is my sign, correct? Yep. If you guys are wanting to call, I'd suggest give me a call the afternoon before. I can let you know what kind of bait we'll have and if we'll be there. And that always helps. Always helps me know how many people are going to be there, how many baits I need to bring. Summertime, I usually bring just as many baits as I can put on the boat because it's just a madhouse. But wintertime, it gets a little bit harder. The baits get a little more scarce. And we got to conserve, so we got to get a reservation. We only put on the boat what we have reservations for.
And they're healthy baits.
Oh yeah,
They're healthy baits.
Oh yeah.
What you got?
Tips to keep your live bait healthy.
Tips to keep your live bait healthy.
Tips to keep your live bait healthy. There's some big ones. Scoop nets, live well, and making sure you don't overscoop. Overscooping is one of the hardest things not to do. If you have a small bait well and you got a lot of bait in there, everybody has had it happen before where you go to scoop one bait and you get 25 of them. You're picking one bait out of there, trying to find the biggest one, and then you just like let the whole thing back in the water. Well, what that just did is just beat everything up and rubbed each other's scales on each other. You know, the more scoops a bait has on it is like taking years off of its life, minutes off of its life. You know.
One at a time.
One to 3 at a time, if you can, and try to keep your scoop net out of the live well when you can, because that's never a good thing. Yeah.
And where can you get the nets that you guys purchase for scooping those baits?
The nets that we purchase, I'm not sure if Snook Nook carries them. I know Snook Nook does have some finer mesh nets. Anything with a smaller mesh, you'll see it when if you do come into the Snook Nook. There's a looks like maybe it's a 3/8 scoop net versus a 1/4 inch scoop net. Of course, this 1/4 inch scoop net. The smaller the holes, the more delicate it's going to be with the baits. You know, they're not putting as much pressure through those.
Rashing them up like that with the bigger holes. Yeah.
Ripping scales off of them and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Fish finders. Fish finders. That's like really all you need to catch bait. That and a sabiki when it comes to summertime sabiki. And it's super simple. Get on your sonar. If you guys have one of the better sonars, you get a combo where you have your map showing you your tracks and where you've been in correspondence to the wreck, and your fish finder on the other side, on the combo. Keep an eye on where you're going. Keep an eye on your fish finder. If you find bait, look at your map and just try to remember where you were at. If you can't remember where you were at, look for the settings where you can start doing the tracks, where you'll have that little dotted line. You'll start noticing a real tight pattern that you're going in. And once you figure that out, it becomes a lot easier. It's almost like a video game. It's instant. As soon as I have it easy, so I get to sit on the back of the boat while Pops drives, and I just sit there and watch the fish finder. As soon as it goes, I'm already like just holding it ready.
Now, when you say as soon as it goes, or what do you like a false bottom?
As soon as the bait starts marking, as soon as we start coming over the bait,
Now, what are you looking for on your fish finder?
You're looking for the depth. You're looking for the depth that they start at and the depth that they end at. Thread fins won't touch the bottom. You'll never have a thread fin mark that touches the bottom. If it looks like it touches the bottom, it's probably a false bottom. The thread fins will be suspended off the bottom. You're gonna look for the tight knots. If the marks start getting broken up, that's usually when it turns into hornbellies, and all your side, your little bycatch and predators.
When you're looking for marks, Mike, is there any distinguishing factors in certain baits that look different from what you're...
Definitely. It's take for instance the croakers. The croakers, you would think it would be a big gnarly knot on the bottom that's going to be more of a hairy scratch, little slightly peppered on the bottom. Thread fins, you're going to look for that suspended mark. Pilchards are always going to be stuck to the bottom unless a fish is pushing them up, and by that time you'll be able to see the whole school of bait pushed up by the fish. That's
most of the things you're looking for, yeah.
What's those the three main things you're looking for when you're catching bait?
Three main things I'm looking for are bait, or bait.
No, the type of bait.
The three types of bait: pilchards, thread fins, and goggle eyes. Yes, sir.
Goggle eyes, you catch them with the sabiki rope?
The goggle eyes are caught on a little bit bigger of a sabiki. I went to try to grab one. I think we ran out last week.
What number sabiki on those bigger ones?
Usually between a 12 and a 14.
And what time of day are you guys getting those goggle eyes?
All goggle eye fishing is really done at night, up into the crack of dawn. And you usually get the best bite of them right at the crack
2
of
a.m.
dawn.
to 6 a.m.
2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And there's no telling. There could be a 20-minute bite window in the middle of the night over those things, and they just stop biting, and that's the only time.
What's the price of goggle eyes?
In the ocean? Or
That's in the ocean, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
what kind of depth do you look at for this to start?
It's all different depths for the goggle eyes. There's no real certain depth. I would say pretty much anything up here past 40 foot. As of course down south, you get them in a lot shallower than that.
On the reefs or just in open water?
Reefs, wrecks, open water. Sometimes you'll catch a knot of them swimming by, but that's kind of rare. Yeah.
And is there a different technique you utilize for catching those goggle eyes as opposed to just the up and down sabiki?
Goggle eyes, you're definitely going to slow it down. Definitely going to slow it down. The thread fins, you don't really have to move it at all. It's as soon as you drop that sabiki into that school of thread fins, there really shouldn't be no technique to it. They'll start eating it, and you can pretty much let the baits that you have on your hook do the work for you and move that sabiki around. As soon as you got one on there, you can kind of watch it if the water's clear. You'll see them all come up and just trail. It looks like a whole trail of little bait fish coming up to the top. You'll pull them right up to the top of the water most of the times. Yeah.
Now, when you were talking about false bottoms earlier, what exactly did you mean by that? Is that just fish getting pushed up?
A false bottom is when your machine starts to malfunction and reads a false bottom. Pretty much like if you're out there in bull shark barge where it's 40 something foot and your machine all of a sudden starts reading 14 foot, you're on a big pile of bait. You're not about to hit bottom. So it gets a little bit tricky when that happens because you can't see the bottom of the school, and now it starts telling you that the top of that school is the bottom of it, and that's kind of something you got to go with machine to machine and learn your own machine and how it works and when it's going to sketch out a little bit when it does that.
So what machines are you guys operating on your boats?
We operate now. We're operating Garmin's and Simrads. We've pretty much been across the whole spectrum, and there's downsides to every single machine as far as the upsides go. There's upsides to every single one. I can't tell you which machine would be the best to catch bait. Just it's all personal preference and price range, really.
And what kind of boats are you guys operating out of, and what's that boat look like?
We're on 24-foot Carolina skiffs. No flags flying, just a big red, white, and blue sign. Two 200-gallon wells that we operate out of, and we keep the bait pretty good.
How many baits, how many pilchards or thread fins can you fit in a 200-gallon well?
Depends if they're fat or skinny.
It really depends on the size.
Sure.
It really depends on the size. just recently been catching thread fins that I can hold between 400 and 600 of in a well if I wanted to black it out, which we never usually do. And there's thread fins where I can only hold 300 to 400 because they're just absolute monsters. Whereas pilchards I can hold 7 to 900.
Yeah, and 10 dozen will go quick too, by the way. So
get out 10 there dozen early. Goes very quick. Yeah, any questions? I appreciate it, guys.
Once you catch the thread fin. Once you catch the thread fin.
Where did I catch them?
No, once you do catch them, how do you fish them to catch something with them? I
like fishing them just a leader straight to a J hook.
Sure.
And letting that bad boy ride. Most of my fishing gets done in the manatee pocket while I'm waiting for sales. It's actually pretty fun fishing in there. And yeah, there's nothing like just putting it straight to a J hook and letting him do his thing. Especially with the season bait, you'll definitely be able to tell when a bait's seasoned because you'll get that thread fin on your line and you're like, good luck to anything trying to catch this little bait fish because this thing's
quick,
just a little rocket. Yeah.
Mention how to hook them.
I always go. It depends. I won't say I always go. Most of the time, if I'm pitching docks and I'm close quarters, it's always going to be the cartilage right in front of the eye, between the eye and the mouth, straight forward, and it allows me to reel him back in if I need to, and he's not dragging backwards. Whereas if I needed to send him across a grass flat, I would hook him in his back, and that would create the tension away from me, and he would just swim out. But if I start having to reel him in and trying to make casts again, dragging water through his gills, and that's gonna shorten it big time.
And that cartilage he's talking about in his nose, so you can almost feel nostrils there, and that's what you're going to want to aim for.
Yep, nice little meaty spot. That's probably the toughest spot to hook on.
And you're going to want to turn that hook upside down once you get it in, so it doesn't mess up the rest of that cartilage there, and keep a stronger hook hold that way.
Yep.
I imagine his live bait setups look similar, minus the circle hook. You said he's using a J hook.
It's just about the same. I mean, I have rods that are 4 to 10 pound that I like catching big snook on with 10 pound braid, and then I have 15 to 30 rods. It's just all dependent on what I'm fishing and how serious I'm really taking the fishing.
Sure, if we're sitting on a flat where we got endless amounts of water, we're not going to be wanting to overgun the fish.
We're going to want to gun it down all the way to almost your bass tackle and have as much fun as possible.
Have 2,500, reel, 3,500 reel, 30-pound fluoro, or 30-pound mono, and let that fish fight you and have some fun with it.
Which one is your favorite bait, and which one lasts the longest?
What's funny about that is it changes probably about every 6 months, and it's been like that. I'm trying to figure out why it's like that every year since I started selling bait. We started with the pilchards, and I started catching so many fish on pilchards. I was like, there's no bait better than a pilchard. I was gonna go get a gold chain of a pilchard, and it was just, and then the thread fins came, and I started seeing the upsides of thread fins. Well, I started getting into a routine of, all right, well, those fish were reacting to that small pilchard. I was catching a lot of small fish also. Now I put that bigger bait on there once the thread fins come through, and now I'm catching the big fish. I'm weeding the smaller fish out. And it's fun to even watch the small fish sit there and pop the big baits. I mean, that's almost just as fun as catching them. I like doing that.
Oh, yeah. Can't beat it. The thing you're going to have with those thread fins, too, you're really going to want to make sure that fish actually eats it. A lot of times you'll rip that thread fin out of his mouth by thinking you're going to get that hook set, or, if you're using a circle hook, you're going to want to lean into it a little bit more. Maybe even open your bail when you feel that hit. Let him chow it down. Let them run with it a little bit if you have the opportunity.
Definitely.
Because you'll pull back a bait sometimes and it'll just be scaled. You'll just see blood and it's just skinned basically.
And then there's the croakers.
Yeah.
The croakers will make you a believer. Will make anybody a believer during the summertime. There's nothing like the croakers.
Go ahead.
Where and when can you catch bait size croakers?
Sorry.
Where and when can you catch bait size croakers?
It's hard around here. But he said the question was, where and when can we catch bait size croakers? Local, it's a little bit harder than Sebastian has it or Port Canaveral has it. They have just an abundance of them up there, and when they get the run, it's absolutely sick.
So
but down here, we most of our croakers are going to be off the beach, right in the trough. I highly suggest following Mr. Paul Spirko to brush up on that, because he will put you on the pompano, or not the pompano, but croakers also.
Now, Mike, so you guys are traveling up and down the coast then, following these baits.
We only place we go to catch croakers is within 100 miles north of here. It's super far, and it's a long ride.
So that what is it? How many dollars a dozen for those croakers?
The croakers are usually $40 a dozen.
So it's a big run.
If we do get a run that comes local, like we did 2 years previous to this year, they do go a lot cheaper. They get down there, So we usually charge by how far we have to travel, how hard the bait's been, and how far out we think our next batch of bait will be.
They last a lot better than
The croakers? The croakers are probably one of the hardiest baits you can find. Those things, I had a couple of those I kept in my little personal bait pen, and then they were like little zombies in there. Even the ones that were rotting away, they were just swimming still. They were.
I kept a good 20 or 30 of them in the pen out back here for a month. I went to the Dominican Republic and forgot about them. So they were living when I got back, and they got eaten by snook when I got back too. And another hardy bait is going to be a mullet as well, and I think a pilchard is probably a lot more hardy than a threadfin. You're going to find that a couple of casts on that threadfin, he's going to be moving a lot slower than that pilchard will be after a couple of casts. So.
And that has a lot to do with the scales.
Yep.
A lot to do with the scales. If you ever next time you catch a threadfin, take your thumb and kind of push it down the side of them, and you'd be surprised how easy all those scales will come off. Now put them in your bait well, and wait a couple hours, and then do it again, and it's even more so, just like really soft. You'll pull every scale off. As far as the pilchard, you can sit there and throw those things at docks back to back, and they're just going to keep going.
And then the pilchards and the threadfins too, they got a little bit of a difference in price, right?
Yep, the pilchards will usually run about 20 to 25 a dozen, and then the threadfins usually run between 30 and 40 a dozen.
Yeah. And again, like we said, with those threadfins, a little bit of a bigger bait, you're going to want to pick your shots with that, right? So maybe you do have a spot where you know some snook are holding up, or you know some bigger fish that are going to be there. That's the place you're going to want to take those threadfin. You're going to want to really pick your shots with those. It's not like, I'm not going to sit here and say you can't go research and development. As long as you got a well full of them, sure, go to any dock you want. But if you only have 3 dozen and you need to last for 4 hours with your family out there, yeah, go to one or two of your favorite docks and pitch those threadfins there and make sure they get hammered, because they're only going to last a few throws, 3, 4, 5. If you pick your shots and you're pretty good at casting, they'll last a long time. But the more you have to pick them up out of the water and throw them and recast, and if you're not accurate, which is another important thing I didn't follow up on, casting accuracy. You guys got to get in there and practice, got to get in there and throw where it's tough, If you're not making those tough throws, you're not confident in getting there, you're not confident in getting those fish that are in those tough places.
It took me.
Anything specifically when you're throwing the live bait at the docks? Anything on the docks you're looking for specifically that stands out? Yeah,
you know what? For me personally, I like anything that looks old, anything that looks like nobody's been there in a while, anything that just anything that feels fishy to you. I mean, I could sit here and I talked to Keith a little bit about this at the Stuart Rod and Reel Club, which he's got a couple words here in a few minutes about. But you can probably go to. I'll just put out a number, 75% of the docks in this area. And if you pick it hard enough, you will catch a snook, you will catch fish, especially if you're utilizing live bait. There's nothing, and I'll say it, there's no comparison when it comes to live bait fishing opposed to artificial fishing. Most of the time, I will outfish somebody fishing artificial as opposed to me fishing live bait. Now, that's specific to this area, because this area is extremely pressured. They want that live bait. I'm not going to say you're not going to get them on artificial, but you're going to work harder for it around here. So, whereas you go on the West Coast, a lot of these guys aren't, they're pitching a lot of artificial baits, a lot of the mirror lures and Z-Mans and where else they got over there. What's up?
There. What else that you be able to catch, like when you're using live
live shrimp? I know you've been catching a lot of nice black drum lately.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, live shrimp, it's something we utilize a lot on the Snook Nook bait. It's like a fail-safe, right? You never know what you're going to catch. You drop down a shrimp any size, and you're going to catch a tiny mangrove snapper. You might catch a 20-pound black drum. And different spots are going to yield different species. So you're going to want to be looking again. We always talk about structure. I said right in the beginning, current, bait, and structure. Those are the things you got to look for. If you have 2 out of the 3 of those things, generally you're going to find fish. Current and bait, great. Bait and structure, good. Structure and current, good. 2 out of the 3. Shrimp, okay. Rigging the shrimp, I got them on a jig head, usually chartreuse, which I have right here. It's going to be a 1/4 ounce, 1/0 jig head, just like that, very small. I pinch that tail off of the shrimp, just about a nail's length, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. Pinch that tail off, thread it out through the back of the shrimp, almost. If this is the shrimp, you know, pinch the tail off of it there, boom. Thread it through the back of the shrimp, just like that. You want to push that barb just through, give it a little pinch, and it should stay just like that. Drop it down. That way that jig head's suspended there on the bottom with that shrimp just not able to dig into the mud enough, so he's sticking up. That's the way I hook them. If I got a split shot and a circle hook or a J hook, it's going to be hooked, you know, naturally. I'm going to hook him just underneath the horns, away from his organs, right on the front of his head there. If I had a shrimp, I'd show you, but it's a little tough. You want to miss those organs. You're going to see he's transparent, so you're going to see his brain, his heart, whatever else is in there in that little shrimp, and you're going to just kind of want to thread it just underneath his horn, away from all those body parts and organs, and he'll still be flopping. Yes, sir.
Talk about the best tides.
Best tides. I fish. I don't. The tides, to me, yeah, I have a favorite tide, sure, and we'll talk about that. It's either going to be the first 2 of the outgoing or the first 2 of the incoming. Don't ask me why, personal preference. I'm sure a lot of other people have a lot of different tides they like to fish. But for me, the water's moving just fast enough, but just slow enough to present the baits the way I like to present them. And again, it depends on what you're doing, you know. If you're throwing artificials, you're not going to want to be in the heaviest current area unless you're fishing a flare hawk or something heavy on the bottom, you know what I mean? So again, it depends. It's all on how you're fishing and what you're fishing for, you know what I mean, as far as the tide goes and an opportunity that comes with certain tides. If you're on a flat up north, you're going to want to fish, in my opinion, you're going to want to wait for it to be dead high and then fish out that low tide. Let it get as low as possible. That way you get all opportunities at that spot. That's just kind of the way I would like to do that situation. But so yeah, it's just perspective. However you like to fish a tide. I wouldn't say I have a personal preference. I do 2 trips a day, and people don't really care about the tide when they go out. They just want to catch fish, and I seem to find fish on both incoming, outgoing, nighttime, daytime, morning, afternoon. You might have to work a little harder for it, bop around, find your spots, but as long as you're covering ground, you're going to end up getting on fish at some point. You know, just don't get fixated on your 1 or 2 spots or your 3 spots. Go out there and explore, research and develop, put in the man hours, you know, get out there. Yes, sir.
Any tips for keeping bait in a bait pen over a couple days or so?
I'll leave that one to Mike. He knows best.
Definitely. Just like I was touching on before, when they're in your live well over scooping them, the same goes for scooping them into a bait pen. We prefer you guys to let us know that if you guys are going to try to pin baits up, if you come buy baits from us, so that we know we can try to come deliver them straight to your pin. Just like I said, the more scoops you put on a bait, the less likely you're gonna get that bait to live. Location and water condition has the most to do with it. Anything past the Hell's Gate there, which is right outside of the pocket. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with that. Anything past there in our area starts to get really sketchy. As soon as they start dumping water, it's the condition goes down, and a couple of the guys that we've sold bait to back there that had success keeping it during the winter time have not had success keeping it during the summertime.
And so when he says Hell's Gate, he's talking about St. Lucie River just before, just south of the Benihana Bridge there, 10-cent bridge. So that water quality tends to get a little bit more fresh than salt.
Tide also. You never want your bait pin to be in the ripping tide. You want it to be, and have current behind it, but nothing that's going to be blowing those baits around. If the baits are tucking up into the corners of your bait pin, and you have corners that they can get caught in, that's a no. Also, that's rounded bait pins will always work the best for you, and medium water flow.
What would you say, the size of your bait pen needs to be to comparison of how many baits that you have?
Easy way to go about it and be super careful about it is a bait a gallon when it comes to thread pens.
One bait per gallon.
One bait per gallon. So if you can do the math on the bait pen you have at home, it's that would be the easiest way. You might be able to squeak a dozen or two extra in there.
You ever feed them?
Feeding. You got to start feeding them. After 3 or 4 days of having them in the pen, after catching them, they go through the healing up process, as I call it. They're stressed. Yeah, hardening process. They're stressed out when you catch them. So the first day after you catch them, you'll notice that they're super soft. Now by the third day, all of your weak ones are going to die off, and you're going to start having those seasoned prawn baits that are going to swim hour upon hour. You feed them. Anything glass minnows, fish food. I've had some formulated stuff that has goggle eyes and thread fins and pilchards all over the bag, and it smells just like I went to the freshwater tank store and picked up some fish food. Yeah,
same stuff.
Yeah, it really did smell like the same stuff. But they make antibiotics these days that you can get to help with that. Potent Sable, Tranquil, stuff to slow them down in the scooping process. We don't like to use any of that stuff. Using Tranquil can be pretty sketchy because it brings their heart rate real low, and if they don't come back up from that, they're dead.
I don't imagine you're keeping baits long enough to feed them, too. You're selling baits left and right.
Usually by the third or fourth day is when you start to feed them, and we're usually on to the next batch by then.
So how many days a week are you guys going and traveling right now to get some of these baits?
It depends. Between 3 and 5 days a week
and you're covering ground from
over
Miami
100 miles each way between Miami and Port Canaveral. It's everywhere.
That's to keep everyone here loaded up. Everyone here is loaded up because of these guys out here, and we greatly appreciate it. You guys definitely keep it going for a lot of people around town. So, any other questions, guys?
Are you cash only?
We're cash only right now. I'm looking into starting the Venmo and getting something along those lines. It wasn't as big of a request when we first started, but within the last year, it's starting to get overwhelming. So we're definitely gonna be going into that.
All right, cool. If we don't have any other questions, we thank you guys for coming out to another Thursday night of Snook Nook Seminar Series. We look forward to having you guys out here in the next couple of weeks for another one. I'm not sure what's on the schedule next. Maybe Alex got a little bit of an indication here.
We're going to be releasing our March seminar schedule here in the next coming weeks. Right before March, I think our first scheduled seminar is going to be from March 11th, Thursday, March 11th, right here at the Snook Nook. We're going to cut the live feed here. If you guys have any questions for Capt Derrick, he's going to hang around here. We also have one of the combos that he's using on the Snook Nook Charter boat right inside.
Yep.
You can go check them out. They can pick one up for yourself. They'll be here. That's all.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great night.
Hold on, real quick. We got Keith from the Stuart Rod and Reel Club. He's going to come up here and talk a little bit about what he's got
Real
going
quick.
on. Jump on in.
The God's honest truth, the best bait, and it'll last all day if you don't catch fish. If you catch fish, you're going to be gone. But I've kept bait 8, 9, 10 hours, as long as you take care of your live well. And I actually put it on recirculate if I got to run up the river because it's not too long.
Yep.
So, and if you want to learn something and really learn how to fish, spend a little bit of money, get 2 people, chip in, and go with a guide like Derrick, who's passionate about his work, and you will learn more in 4 hours than you'll ever learn anywhere else. Just little stuff. How he hand pulls the rod, just how to set the hook, whatever.
Yeah, just
So,
anything I didn't cover tonight, any little tidbit that you see me do, and I'm here. Shoot me, you got my number right on the sign back here. Give me a call, pick my brain. I'll answer the phone even if you just have a question.
I spent thousands on guides to learn how to fish. So my real thing is Stuart Rod and Reel Club. It's free to attend. It's the second Thursday of the month at Pirates Cove. Bring $20 bill for cash for dinner. We have a plated meal for dinner, soft drink, and a side for $20. You don't have to be a member. Second Thursday of the month. We always have great captains, great guest speakers there, and you'll learn a lot. And what else can I tell you? We have fishing tournament 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. Pirates Cove Restaurant. The second Thursday of the month, 6 o'clock. It's a dinner, and then we have a great guest speaker every month, whether it be a captain, steward, live bait, biologists, FWC police officers. A lot of information out there. And Snook Nook is one of our great sponsors. And whatever. What?
Our outings every month.
Yeah, well, if you join the club, we have an outing after the meeting, a week after the meeting, we have an outing, a luncheon, it's free. We have a pig roast annually. We have tournaments twice a month tournament, a weekend tournament. So you win shirts, hats, it's great. I moved up here 15 years ago. 5 years ago, I retired up here. And most of my best friends were all in a fishing club. I fish 3 to 5 days a week. But hire one of these guys, you'll learn so much. They do a great job.
Thanks, Keith.
Yeah, appreciate it, Keith. Thank you very much.